Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast and our live Texans-Patriots postgame show. We're part of the National Bleav Network, and joining me is contributor Tom Chavarria, co-host of the Bullpen podcast. Good to see you, Tom. And they took care of business. I mean, no stressful, needless one-score last-second win.
Yeah, the people that were hoping for a tight, contested game, they're a little disappointed today. Texans came in, did what they're supposed to do, and didn't treat this game like a potential game where I think they could have overlooked New England. I think they really paid attention to the task at hand, and 5-1 is pretty special.
It's hard to judge sometimes, Tom, because you got the guys on the other side of the field, and this is potentially the worst team in the NFL talent-wise, or one of the worst teams in the NFL talent-wise. So it's hard to judge your team, but you wanted some guys to step up that hadn't been stepping up, and some parts of the game to get better, and I think we saw some of that.
Yeah, I mean, there were some guys that were out today, some guys that were coming back off injury too, and I think anytime you have that, you always hope that those guys transition seamlessly back in. You hope that the loss of some of the guys, the key members that are out, aren't going to plague you. And today, I feel like the Texans really didn't have issues in those areas. I think the guys that came back played phenomenal. I think while I absolutely miss guys like Chavarria Lassiter and Nico Collins, I don't think you missed them today as much because some other guys had some really good games.
Yeah, I think I said on social media, I guess Chavarria Lassiter and Nico Collins had to die so Joe Mixon and Mixon Pierce could live. And that seemed to be the case. And for everybody watching live, by the way, send us your comments and questions. I see some of you are already in the comments, and we're going to get to them in just a second. We'll post your reactions as we move along. Who's your Texans MVP for this one? A couple of guys made really good cases. Also, if you're new to Houston Sports Talk, we do this every single Texans game. So make us a part of your Texans routine. Love to have Tom with me going through this stuff. He does a fantastic job. And boy, let's get to the action, because we like to go possession by possession. The Texans off to a red-hot start. They open up with first down catches from Schultz, Dell, and a couple from Stephon Diggs. Stroud makes a perfect touchdown throw to Tank Dell. Not much from Mixon other than that on this drive, Tom, but it was a picture-perfect opening drive.
Yeah, I don't know what the Bobby Slowik guys that aren't a fan of Bobby Slowik were doing today. I think early on you saw what his offense could be. I think they were really, really sharp, came out of the gates flying, like you said. And while I expected Mixon to get more touches, I wasn't mad at the way that they were kind of made it happen. I think it was a great first series.
Yeah, we have a comment from Brandon who says first win in Foxborough. Yes, they were 0-7 going into this one, if you did not know. So they take care of a business there. We're going to get to the Schultz comment in a little bit. I think maybe I differ from some of the people that I've seen on social media, but we'll get there. Quick 3-and-out by the Texans D. Steven Sims back returning punts with the Robert Woods injury. 19-yard return sets up great field position. Texans draw a big pass interference on the first drive, which we didn't mention. And then Tank draws a huge third down pass interference, setting up the Joe Mixon 10-yard touchdown catch. You can't draw up a start better than that. I mean, what else do you want, Tom? It's 2 touchdowns, 2 possessions, and the defense did its job too.
Absolutely. The defense was very, very fast. I think, when you talk about the defense, we hope for sack numbers, right? We really want them to have these big, gaudy games where interceptions, fumbles, all of these things. But I think in the interim, early on, they were really trying to do really well against quarterbacks that could scramble, do things like that. I don't know that Drake May was trying to use his legs early, and the Texans really put the pressure on him. And then when you talk about that offense, I mean, it just looks so sharp. They were on their P's and Q's. Some of these breaks look really good. Some of the routes look really good. And as always, CJ is fantastic. So it was just a great start to a game.
Yeah, you mentioned the Texans offense. Big tip of the cap to the offensive line. That I think they had a really good game all the way around. And Texans defense gets the ball back for the Texans immediately. Kalen Bullock on third down, the interception handed to him on a silver platter by the rookie quarterback, basically. And on third down, Stroud might have missed Diggs wide open, according to the replay we saw, but it's hard to tell if the pass pressure flushed him before Diggs was open, leading to what you would have thought is an automatic Kaimi Fairbairn, but he misses the easy 40. Hey, that's like a 2-yard field goal for Kaimi. Come on, man.
Kaimi is human. I was as shocked as I think everyone else was. You just kind of, if they're lining up for a field goal, you just put the 3 points on the board. Luckily, it did not matter in this game. It wasn't something we were looking back on later in the game going, well, if Kaimi doesn't miss, then so. But again, if he's going to miss one, I'd rather miss him here than in another game where points are at a premium.
Yeah, Adam talked about the ground game and plenty to talk about there. 192 yards rushing. Fantastic stuff from them. Let's move to Will Anderson, who gets the first of his 2 first-half sacks. Huge game. Much more to talk about there. That puts the ball back with the Texans offense. And looky here. Joe Mixon, welcome back. Gets the Texans' first 20-plus yard carry of the season, 59 yards on that one. So we're thinking, here's the blowout. It's about to happen. But Tom, CJ had to put a perfect pass into double coverage. He did not lead Schultz quite enough. The defensive back, I thought, did a fantastic job of grabbing his arm, Schultz, as he was trying to grab the ball, and it's intercepted. What did you think about that?
I really thought you tip your cap to the defense. They made an amazing play to get in there to disrupt that pass. And then for the safety, I think they showed it in the replay where he had to come from to be in that play to make the interception. I think initially he started to the left side of the field and then ranged all the way over to be in that play to catch the deflection. Obviously, you want your team to capitalize on every score, and people in the comments and people on social media like, well, why aren't they scoring a ton of points? This isn't it. And the other team is trying to stop these guys from doing that. And that was just a great play. I mean, if you look at it differently from the standpoint of Schultz catches that touchdown, some of these comments are different. Some of the score is probably different. But credit to New England. They were trying to make a play at home to keep themselves in a game that they desperately needed.
Yeah, Sanjay, I know you disagree with me. I told you Schultz is washed. No, he had a really good game, actually. Wrong. Again, Sanjay, I'm going to say, yeah, you disagree with me. I'm going to defend Schultz. Yeah, I'm going to defend Schultz. Did he hit both hands? Yeah, he hit both hands, but you can't catch a ball with both hands when the defender has got his arm yanking down one of your hands as you're trying to catch it with both hands. CJ Stroud put it a little bit behind him. It's an incredible throw that you're trying to make, an NFL quarterback throw. CJ's placement this game was fantastic for pretty much the whole game. That one was just a little bit off, but I'm not going to be mad at him. He tried to make a really good throw. He was like maybe a half a yard off or a couple of feet off, and that's it. And yeah, I disagree with all of you guys. You're all wrong. And Tom, you agree with me. They're all wrong. This is not on Schultz.
No, not at all. And I think if CJ was in his post game right now, he'd probably say the same thing. I've got to lead him a little bit more. If you go back to the Tank Dell touchdown, he threw that where only Tank could get it. And I think if he throws that ball similarly, I think the defender is able to make a play on that. The game is literally 6 inches this way, 6 inches that way, changes it completely. And for me, I don't necessarily think that, you can put that on Dalton Schultz. If you want to, you can. Obviously, you're allowed to your own opinion. But for me, I thought it was just a great play by the defense. Tip your cap.
Yeah, tip your cap to the I was about to say exactly what you just said. Tip your cap to the Patriots defense. They don't have much right with the Patriots. So when they make a play, you say, good play, guys, and you move on. So the Texans still can't push it up to 3 scores. You feel a little bit more comfortable if it's 3 scores right there. The Texans D, again, keep the Patriots from passing midfield. Nice deflection. Mario Edwards on 3rd down. But the offense, quick 3 and out. The 3rd down screen to Dell goes nowhere. Just one of the worst drives of the game. And after another Texans defensive stop, the Texans D in a 2-minute situation. But after a Mixon first down catch, Tom, Stroud sacked on 3rd down. That was not their best end of the half offense that we've seen. I mean, they were typically really good at the end of the half. This was a rarity.
Yeah, I mean, I think like they were trying to settle for a field goal. One of the rare times where you'll see me say I thought the play calling was vanilla. I thought they really could have like pushed the ball down the field if they wanted to, and they were trying to milk the clock down to 0 and get 3, which I think they've done in previous games where, I kind of agreed with it. This time I didn't necessarily agree with it, and it ended up costing them.
We'll get to the disastrous end of the first half in just a second. But before we roll on, quick reminder to share your thoughts on YouTube and click the like button to support the show. For those of you guys in the comments now, definitely make sure you still click the like on YouTube. And if you haven't done so, subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast app. All right, back to the action. And oh, brother, last chance for the Patriots in the half. Eric Murray, 2 awful penalties after a mostly clean first half penalty-wise, which sets up Derek Stingley getting badly beat for the touchdown. What happened, Tom?
So I know I saw a lot of people upset with the penalties, and I get it. But this was probably one of the cleanest games the Texans played all season. So I'm going to have to forgive the penalties. I just think you can't get beat one-on-one there if I'm Stingley. I don't even understand the press coverage there. It was more like one of the few times I've seen D'Amico probably call a play where a defense where I was kind of like, I think you put Stingley in a bad spot. I think there was a little bit more of like a disrespect to Derek May, like, hey, you can't make that throw. And he put it on the money. A beautiful ball. I think if he throws it behind him a little bit, maybe Stingley can get back in the play. But to lead the receiver, again, you just kind of have to tip your cap there. Drake May is not as bad as I think some people think he is because Jacoby Brissett got the nod out of training camp. Put 3 touchdowns on the board today, more than Jacoby had done all season. So I think they changed defensively based off of that play.
One thing I noticed, I don't know if you saw this, Tom, but Azeez got nicked up late in the first half. So Neville Hewitt was in for Azeez, and they sent 6 guys at Drake, including Azeez, who, frankly, including Hewitt, who I thought looked a little lost. I thought Azeez might have gotten to Drake right there. It was a delayed blitz, and I'm just like, why are we doing delayed blitz when the only way you let the Patriots back in the game right here is with the touchdown? And, it gave them all the time that they needed on the Stingley pass because the delayed blitz was too delayed. I mean, what are you delaying a blitz for? This is Drake May. He's a rookie. And this is, pressure should get to him at that point. And it just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this is one of the few times I would say D'Amico would probably go back and say, I got to be better there. Bad just series of play calls where you gave this team who didn't really have anything going for them a chance to like get back in the game. Although I didn't see it, I wasn't as concerned as I saw on social media.
All right. So third quarter, Danielle Hunter gets it back on track in a hurry. Huge hit on Drake May. Sack, fumble, Edwards recovers, and CJ quickly hits Diggs on the TD. I'm going to ignore the dumb Diggs taunting penalty. They had mostly stayed out of bad stuff in this game, but that was not necessary. It's the old saying, don't kick a sleeping dog, man. And I just didn't think that was necessary. You don't want to help the Patriots, who are definitely outmanned. Danielle's sack, though, was the 3rd sack by Anderson and Hunter to that point in the game. They had 5 sacks coming in. Pressures are nice, Tom. We could talk about them all day long, but I like sacks.
I think this was always going to be a game where the Texans were going to try to get right on that number. I don't believe they thought Drake May would be as mobile. I definitely don't think they thought Jacoby Brissett would be. So the fact that they were able to get home, I really think that if you had any questions about Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter, this kind of answered them. I think when you have mobile quarterbacks, they're going to change their philosophy a little bit. When you have guys that'll stand in the pocket a little bit, I think you're going to see these guys come after them. And as we saw today, they can absolutely get home.
After a quick 3 and out by the Texans D, the Texans with another chance to go up 3 scores. They finally get it done. Not pretty, but they get into the Patriots territory. Stroud and Diggs can't draw pass interference on 3rd and 6, unfortunately, but Fairbairn converts the field goal. Anything stick out from that drive for you?
No, not really. I felt like, and I didn't get out on social media and speak to it, but I really felt like the Texans were just playing them with their food a little bit. They were trying some things. I think they had some things that were working that they could have went back to, and glad they got the 3 points. But I felt like at that point in time, they got stagnant because they were doing things that were kind of like out of culture for me, and I think eventually they got back on track.
All right. WD says, thank goodness for the D line. Definitely the case. Secondary gave up 3 bombs to the rookie. We can get into the secondary in a bit because that's going to be an issue going forward the next few weeks because a lot has happened since you and I have talked last week with the secondary, Tom. We're going to get into that. But Texans force another turnover. Aziz, beautiful punch job, getting the ball loose on a screen pass. 3rd forced turnover by the Texans. And how great is it to have Aziz on your side, Tom? I love that dude.
I do too. I love what he said pregame. I don't know if you saw the clip where he was talking about Drake May and how he doesn't get into where people are drafted, undrafted, number 3 drafted, doesn't matter. I treat them the same way. I try not to underestimate them. He had a great speech. If you haven't seen it, I think it's out on social media. Go look that up. But you just saw it on the field. He plays with his hair on fire. I love that guy. I can see why D'Amico Ryans absolutely felt like he had to have him. And the defense, like you spoke to earlier, just looks so different when he's not on the field.
The Texans get lucky. Stroud doesn't read the pressure in his face. It forces a duck throw that somehow doesn't get intercepted. Fairbairn is back to Fairbairning, putting the Texans up by 20. And at this point, I smelled a rare Texan cover. Guys, Vegas loves us today.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw 6.5 points, I Bleav that's what it ended at finally. I was like, how did they not cover that? But you know how football's weird and sometimes weird stuff happens. But yeah, the Texans definitely got it done.
All right. The Patriots go back down the field in a relatively easy drive. Hunter Henry finishes it off with the touchdown catch. And just shocked, really, Tom, at how wide open their receivers looked throughout that drive, considering Drake May's got to throw the football.
I felt like up 20 points, I think the defense took their foot off the pedal, and you saw it. You saw like some routes just come completely open that weren't there all day. You saw Drake May with time, which he didn't have all day. And I wonder if that's a coaching tool that D'Amico used to be like, this drive can't happen, showing the tape. We have to be able to not give them any life anytime.
No Kamari Lassiter. It looks like he's going to be out for a while. Also, Jimmy Ward. We know Jimmy Ward's always in and out. So it's like you're in a load of trouble right now when you start facing some real quarterbacks at the defensive line. Don't bail you out like they did in this game. Texans on offense on 3rd down. Schultz can't make a one-handed catch. And frankly, I thought he could have used his second hand. I know you Schultz people want to hate him for everything, but the guy typically can catch everything. And I saw Cade Stover drop a pass in this game that he should have had with both hands on the ball. So that's why you love a guy like Dalton Schultz for the most part. But again, that's the one that I'm more upset about than the potential touchdown throw. Stroud maybe could have made the throw a little easier, but I'm fine with him trying to play it safe, keep it away from the defender at this point in the game. But the Texans D comes up with 2 incredible individual efforts on that interception. And Tom, I'm going to let you wax poetically about Will Anderson and Eric Murray for a sec.
Will Anderson was absolutely fired up from the word go. He had a huge pregame speech that they showed. I saw it on social media. The guy had energy for days, and he showed it. He was in the backfield all day long. Could not block him. Didn't matter. Left side, right side, didn't matter. He was there. And then Eric Murray with a play that I didn't think he had in his bag, to be honest. I didn't think that Eric Murray was that dude. An amazing play catching the ball behind this guy's helmet and holding on to it, pulling it in. Great individual effort, like you said, and just proves what this defense can be when it's clicking on all cylinders.
I briefly mentioned Mario Edwards earlier. He had a really good game. Brandon says he's earned his spot. Only thing, you got from Mario Edwards that almost cost you was he got lucky. He got away with a face mask, but otherwise he was everywhere, just as much involved in the game as the 2 outside guys.
Yeah, the whole line, I guess the entire trenches, if you really want to talk to it. The offensive line was really good today, I thought, for what they've been. I thought the defensive line was fantastic. You really saw them get after a quarterback that you have to get after as a young guy. You don't want him to get comfortable. So they did a really good job of moving him off the spot and just in his face the entire time. Can't say enough good things about the defensive line.
So the Will Anderson and Eric Murray turnover turns into Joe Mixon touchdown. And now Kevin Harlan highlighted the Diggs block to spring him, but I also noticed what Blake Fisher did, who was in after the Tunsil injury. He pushed his guy back at the line and then got another guy on the second level. And with Tunsil constantly getting banged up these days, they need Fisher to grow up fast. And that's the type of stuff I want to see from him.
I think when they drafted Blake Fisher, I was a little intrigued by the pick because they already had both tackles, figured out. But what a luxury he's turning into. Somebody that if Titus is out or if Laramie's out for any extended period, he can come in and play good football. I thought he was a great pick for the position when they got him. So now you're seeing a guy that potentially could be a starting tackle in this league, be a guy that you can count on when one of those guys isn't 100%. And you just spoke to the secondary and how they're going to fill those holes. Knowing that if Laramie Tunsil or Titus Howard can't go, I feel fully confident that Blake Fisher can step in.
The Patriots roll right back down the field. Eric Murray beat over the middle by Douglas on the TD pass. But everybody might say, oh, that's Eric Murray's fault. But man, just leaving the middle wide open again. Like this is a team that, Drake may make him think back there. And you've got guys that are getting to the quarterback and Anderson and Hunter. So I didn't feel like you had to leave the middle as open as they did, especially in the second half of this game.
I agree. I think that goes back to the play calling and D'Amico Ryans. I think he really wanted to get after the quarterback and made a concerted effort to, and that was at the expense of, the middle of the field sometimes. And for me, I wish that when we see it, he could see it. Obviously we're over here on the couch and he's in the middle of it. But I thought they were getting home fine with 4 guys. I didn't necessarily think they needed to bring some of the added pressure that I thought he brought from time to time. But that's why he gets paid to do the job, and we're just talking about it. But from the couch, obviously, like you said, we can see the middle of the field was left open a few times. And for a rookie quarterback, I feel like that's a great check down spot. It's right in his line of vision. He doesn't have to go through all his different progressions. And I would have denied him that, but on to bigger and better things.
This guy, Daniel, says, strange but predictable to see one good offensive performance in 6 games against the worst team in the league. And immediately here, you have to feel pretty stupid to doubt Bobby Slowik. Look, I've addressed this. Tom's addressed it. They were 6th in offense going into this game in yardage. The penalties were killers. When they don't get penalties, how many points did they score again today, Tom, without penalties on offense, killing them all the time? How many did they get?
41, right? 40?
Yeah, 41 points. I think that's plenty. And look, the Patriots, you could say they're bad, but there's other teams in the NFL that they played, and those teams aren't scoring 41 on them. So, look, give them some credit. They've got talent on offense. Bobby Slowik knows what he's doing. There's, a couple things we nitpick with Bobby, but overall, you can't argue with what they're doing. Next Texans drive, welcome back Dameon Pierce. And as I said in the middle of the week, Bobby Slowik didn't have his first 2 running backs. It's amazing what happens when your first 2 running backs are healthy. When the guy that you spent all that money and all that time and capital on the offseason going to get, and Joe Mixon comes back, and Dameon Pierce, who was really good for you a couple of years ago, all of a sudden, Dameon Pierce, 54-yard touchdown run. The 2 combined, Tom, 188 yards, and 30 yards passing with 3 touchdowns on the game, Daniel. Okay. It really helps to have your talent and your main guys out there again.
It's interesting. I feel like people just expect, because CJ Stroud is at quarterback, for them to just score 50 points. And if they don't, it's Bobby Slowik's fault. But then when you look at what they're missing at key positions, like you spoke to with Dameon Pierce and now Nico Collins and Joe Mixon, like these are key guys that if you take away other teams' number one rushing option or number one receiving option, which Nico Collins is leading the league in receiving before today. I mean, that has to kind of favor what Bobby Slowik's doing. I don't think he just gets there by himself. And then you spoke to the New England Patriots being a team that, okay, they're the worst team in the league. They beat Cincinnati week 1. They lost to the Seattle Seahawks on a field goal. Like, some of these great teams aren't blowing the doors off of them. The Jets went in there and it was 24-3, but it wasn't 40. Like, at what point do we look at those things and go, okay, maybe I should ease up on Bobby Slowik. Maybe the team is actually doing what they need to do to win these games.
Anybody have their pick for Texans MVP? Because we're hitting that next. I haven't seen anybody in the comments. Let's see what Tom thinks. I have as your candidates for Texans MVP, Joe Mixon, 2 touchdowns, 132 total yards, and I only have one other guy on this list, Will Anderson, 3 sacks, 3 TFLs, and the pass deflection leading to an interception. Who you got?
So I knew this was the choices. I just absolutely knew. And this is so tough because I want to make them co-MVP. I think that both of those guys just shined crazy. When you think about what Will Anderson did, where that interception is directly a result of a tip play. I mean, it's Joe Mixon, though. It really is. Joe Mixon just looks like so much better. Nothing against Cam Akers, nothing against Dare. Maybe it's New England. I don't know. But 2 games that Joe Mixon's played, he's absolutely ran the crap out of the rock. And I love that they throw to him in the backfield too. He's just a different weapon. Like, you can't account for him. And his vision is something different. He finds holes that aren't necessarily there, the cut back lanes. He hits those. It's Joe Mixon for me. And it's close, but it's Joe Mixon.
Oh, man. I'm going to go the other way. I mean, you're right. It's close, co-MVPs, but neither one of us are going to wimp out on this one. And I'm taking Will Anderson because, just so many big game-changing defensive plays when you thought, okay, here it is. They're keeping them close again. And yeah, Joe Mixon had that huge run and he had the touchdown pass, but man, on the touchdown run, the touchdown pass and the huge run, boy, the blocking was good for him. Boy, there was some space there. And that to me was like, oh, this is not him running over guys or making these great cuts or, this tremendous speed. He got some help. Will Anderson, boy, he was doing it, just doing some one-on-one work in this game. So that was my choice for Will Anderson. I do want to say, though, Tom, like, really low key almost. It almost gets lost in the shuffle, and it shouldn't. Stefon Diggs and Tank Dell made some big catches all through the game, and not just big catches, but they made catches that, the ball's near the ground and they didn't let it hit the ground. They got both hands on the ball and immediately secured it. They didn't leave anything to chance, didn't fumble it. Also, fantastic placement by CJ Stroud all game long on the passes those guys made. And just real underrated. CJ Stroud's placement on Tank Dell's throws. So that guy who's not really big to begin with doesn't have to stretch out and get hurt. He puts it near the ground where only Tank Dell can get it. But, all 3 of them I want to give props to, but especially Tank and Stefon, because, they just didn't drop anything.
Stefon Diggs was 6 for 7 for 77 yards and a touchdown. Like, I can't tell you like how crazy his catch to target rate is right now. He's literally catching everything thrown at him. And for people that were, worried about the diva thing or worried about, whether or not he would be okay with not seeing the lion's share, Tank Dell got 10 targets today. He was not the number 1 guy without Nico Collins. And you never saw him mope. You didn't see him complain, showing love everywhere. I think all of the noise about Stefon Diggs being anything other than an absolute crazy about winning type player and a great teammate are just really overblown. I think he had a great game, like you said. And to speak to what CJ can do, man, there's only a handful of guys that can place the ball like he does. And you saw it today. There was a couple different plays where he basically protected the wide receiver, made it to where there was no chance of anything happening. And we were extra critical of the one time that it doesn't happen. But like you spoke to, we rarely talk about the so many other times where he puts the ball where only his guy can get it. And those guys are making great plays.
He took a couple of coverage sacks if I'm going to nitpick on CJ, but it's hard. It's so hard to nitpick on him. And Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell combined 13 catches. I've got him down for 134 yards, Tom. And, that's what you're going to need with Nico gone.
Absolutely. I do believe these guys are going to step up. I was interested to see who would fill the role of that next guy because, we've been accustomed to having, this big three, right? I thought it was going to be Xavier Hutchinson. I thought maybe John Mechie. I think we're still waiting to see what that could be. I think you're going to see more from Cade Stover and Dalton Schultz going forward. And I don't know what Sanjay is going to do when we get a 6-catch, 60-yard, 2-touchdown Dalton Schultz game. I think he's going to have a hard day at the office that day.
Yeah, just Aaron Wilson said about Joe Mixon, the energy he brings, it's different. Not just the offense, but the entire team. One of the best competitors I've been around. His passion for the game, to not play at 100% and have an outstanding performance shows who Joe is. That tells you he wasn't even 100%, and he's still giving you 100+ yards on the ground. Really good stuff.
I'm looking forward to next week. I know we're still talking about this week, but next week is a heavyweight matchup.
And as far as Azeez go, they said he's being evaluated with a knee. I mean, he came out at the end of the first half. He came back in and he had that huge play. Unless he got it banged up again, should I be worried? I feel like I'm always worried because, half the time guys come out of the game playing with the Texans and in the middle of the week we hear, oh, now they're not going to play or they're out for a few weeks or whatever. And I just get scared to death of anything close to an injury. Sometimes you don't even see it in the game and they get it, they're out. So I don't know.
The fact that he came back in gives me hope. I think when he went out of the game kind of coincided with the game being put out of reach. Obviously the knee is going to be something to monitor going forward this week to see where he's going to be at. Hopefully we're not talking about it, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that sort of thing, because he's, got some rest, got some, I guess treatment, and he's ready to go for a big game next week.
Kalen Bullock, I briefly mentioned the interception, sort of on the platter for him. But the one thing I can say about Kalen Bullock is I don't feel like I see like major mistakes. I mean, there might be stuff where maybe he should have been at this point. I don't know if there was supposed to be any over the top on Kalen Bullock on that touchdown at the end of the first half. Tom, it's like that's stuff that until we look at all 22 or something like that, you don't know what exactly happened there. And I don't know if the coaches ever answer this type of stuff.
I don't know. I just know that I love what he brings so far as a rookie. This is a guy that was advertised as a ball hawk, and we're seeing it. There are plays where guys are like, in coverage and they don't make the catch. And you're like, well, that's why you're a corner. That's why you're a safety and not a receiver. I don't see Kalen Bullock miss any of these. We talked about the one that he was gifted because it was an overthrow, but he made the play and then made a move. I think he's doing a really good job being kind of pressed into service because Jimmy Ward's nicked up. So I'm looking forward to maybe potentially seeing more plays from Kalen Bullock going forward.
What do you feel about going into facing Jordan Love? Because now we're talking about a quarterback that a little bit better than what we've seen most of the last few weeks outside of Josh Allen. I mean, this defense has done a pretty good job, even though they gave up 3 touchdowns in this game, kind of uncharacteristically. I like we said, I'm worried about the secondary with those 2 injuries. Hopefully, maybe Jimmy Ward can come back. I mean, he hasn't been put on the IR. Maybe Lassiter can come back, but that injury, if it's what they say it is, that usually takes like at least a few games to come back from. So, yeah, that's the real question is like once you face the real quarterbacks that can take advantage of some of these mismatches potentially. I mean, D'Angelo Ross, I mean, I don't know how much I trust a D'Angelo Ross in that situation. A lot of Eric Murray in coverage, mostly been good recently, but, Eric Murray is not Kamari Lassiter. He's not Stingley, so that's a concern.
Yeah, this is probably going to set up to be one of the heavyweight matchups early on for the Texans. Obviously, Buffalo was a big game, and that was a litmus test, and they passed it. This one going into Lambeau Field, I think against a red-hot Green Bay team that absolutely dismantled Arizona. That game was never close. it's going to set up to be two young stud quarterbacks. Jalen, I can't
Jordan
remember.
Love.
Jordan. Thank you. Jordan Love just got a huge contract. He's living up to that contract so far. They're lighting up scoreboards. I think he went for 4 touchdowns this week. So I'm looking forward to it. For me, these are the kind of games where you really feel like if the Texans can get by, a team like Green Bay in Green Bay, it'll really signify where this team is and where they're going. Obviously, you need to play these games to kind of get that feel for that atmosphere and play top talent. And, a lot of people are like, well, it's because it's New England, or, well, they beat the Colts. And if the Texans win this game, I don't see where the argument's going to be. Well, it's because so-and-so. I think it's going to be a good game.
Around the division, Colts edge out the Titans, so they're 3-3, really the only threat to the Texans so far. Meanwhile, does Doug Peterson still have a job? I don't know. It was not pretty today against the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's more about Caleb Williams being really, really good as he's progressed. I think the Texans were lucky to catch him when he did. He's been red hot the last couple of games, but Jacksonville's just an absolute free fall. I don't know what Doug Peterson can do to save his job. They're tied to Trevor Lawrence for a long time. So I think the easiest thing for them to do is probably to find another head coach that can maybe reach him to get him to a potential that they think he's capable of. And right now, I just think it's going to be a really bad season for them going forward.
Your old friend Deshaun Watson, Tom, lost again, this time to the Eagles. 168 total yards, 16 of 23. So, I mean, he's completing them, but they're not big ones. No touchdowns, 5 sacks. It is not pretty in Cleveland right now. And I feel like we're either going to come to the end of the Deshaun Watson experiment, or they're going to fire a really, really good 2-time coach of the year.
I imagine if nothing changes, the Deshaun Watson contract will go down as one of the worst contracts in NFL history. Like, I can't imagine how you ever get past something like that if they can't get him to be a average QB. Right now, Drake May put up better numbers than Deshaun Watson did today. And this is his first NFL start. Like, I get it. The New England defense is talented, but Darius Slay went out of that game. I think they were in Cleveland. So, like, there should have been an avenue where Deshaun could have got that team, at least moving offensively. Right now, they just look so disjointed. I think Nick Chubb can't get back for them fast enough, because that's really going to take some of the pressure off of Deshaun to have to be an elite quarterback and just manage a game. But that's an awful expensive dude to title game manager.
Any final thoughts before we close things out?
Man, I'm just so excited. This is a good football team. 5-1, tied for the best start in franchise history from 2012. So this has been a long time coming. We're nitpicking so many little things, right? And we should, because those are things where they can improve, and we want to see them improve. And that means we're passionate about this football team. But to be 5-1, to hang 40 in a road stadium, which you've never won, these are things that I don't think I would have imagined when the season started. Yeah, I imagine them to be good. This is really good. I really love where they are. They're starting to get the national attention they deserve. You've got guys like I'm struggling with names. Quarterback for the Patriots, the GOAT. He's out there hyping up the Texans as one of the top teams in the league. And for me, Tom Brady, thank you, Tom Brady. I'm like, why can't I think of this man's name? Tom Brady hyping this team up.
Been trying to forget him for years, man. I've just been trying to.
Scarred. Yeah.
Patriots fans might have forgotten that he exists after their last few years. No, I mean, there is one good news that's going to happen next week. We get a guy that can really help out the Texans for sure. What happens after 6 games? Do you remember? You can't remember Tom Brady's name. Can you remember who's coming back next week?
Danico Autry.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it. I don't know what he's going to look like game 1. I think people are going to have to temper expectations, because game speed is real. Like, you need to have those reps. But for me, 2-3 weeks down the line, absolutely, that defense could look 100 times better than it does now with a guy like that who can just absolutely wreak havoc.
If you've seen Christian Harris anywhere, like walking around town, please ask him what's going on, and let us know after you ask him, like, what's going on. Because, man, I at this point, I would like to see him walking around at practice, looking like maybe he's not going to need a cane or a stretcher or a wheelchair or something like that. But I want Christian Harris because that takes the pressure. I mean, you can't take Azeez out of the game. You can't take Toa really out of the game at this point. Those guys are going to start to wear down. You need some backups. And Neville Hewitt, I love him on special teams, but I don't want to see him out there a lot.
Yeah, Christian Harris is definitely on the side of a milk carton for me. He's missing in action. The one thing I will say is if now is the time where he needs to get right, and this is an addition that you make to this team in, say, 2 weeks where you have another great linebacker to go with the 2 linebackers you just mentioned, I'm okay with that. Right now, this team is able to just do just enough defensively without 2 big names that we just spoke to. And, Jimmy Ward and Kamari Lassiter. So to be able to weather those things and still win football games, to me, is the ultimate sign of a true, contender, because at the end of the season, if those guys are back healthy, you're going to be looking at this team totally different with a lot of names all over the field and really, really good.
All right, let's close things out and check out Tom on the Bullpen podcast. He's there all the time doing great work. And on Tuesday, Steven and I are back for our midweek look at the Texans, a little Rockets conversation too. The regular season just 10 days away. I don't understand why the Rockets are having a practice out at Toyota Center during the Texans game or on a Texan Sunday. Makes no sense to me. Just kind of brain dead stuff by the Rockets. They tend to do some of that stuff occasionally. Their PR marketing people, they need to do a little bit better job with that stuff. The Texans just seem to be light years better than the Rockets right now. That's what you agree with me there on that, Tom?
Oh yeah, it's a travesty they did it today. I really wanted to go. I mean, if anything, do it Saturday. Trying to compete with the Texans on a Sunday is just a mistake.
But man, you guys crapping on the Texans. They're 5-1. Okay, they've taken care of business this year. Their one loss was against the Minnesota Vikings. How many losses, Tom, do the Minnesota Vikings have right now?
Last time I checked, they don't have any.
Big old 0. That's a pretty darn good team that they lost to. I know it wasn't pretty. I know they got killed. I know there was some issues, the penalties and all that sort of stuff. But the Texans are 5-1, and they've got Joe Mixon on their side. And they have this little guy called Stephon Diggs, who's just a nice little secondary receiver to have if somebody gets hurt. And they've got Tank Dell, and they've got Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, and they've got reinforcements coming. And don't forget about my boy Azeez, because he's pretty awesome too. But good stuff from the Texans in this one. Thanks so much for all the comments. I jump on you guys if I disagree with them, but I still love that you're commenting. I love your passion. Don't worry about being wrong. Just bring us something that you feel like is a hot take, and we'll take a look at it and try to break it down and dissect it for you. But have a great Sunday. Have a great week, everybody, and come back and visit us soon. Again, you gotta put us on your list of stuff to do every single Texan Sunday.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, you can support the show by subscribing on YouTube and commenting on the videos. Listen to Houston Sports Talk on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, and Google. Don't forget to tell a friend and share our show on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.